Good morning. This is Jason Dean coming live at you again for another Film Fanatic show. It is Thursday morning at 9:45. Beautiful day, nice and hot and sunny. So yeah, this week I've been off on vacation from school. I start back with the summer camps next week, but it's been pretty chill and relaxing here at Film Fanatic headquarters. Just been getting some practicing in, doing videos. I'm gonna go to a movie tonight. This new Paul Rudd movie that I'm going. Some friends that invited me to go to this movie at the Strand, which is a really beautiful theater. So I'm excited to go. I It's a comedy, a black comedy. It's A24, so we'll see. I don't know really much about it. I know that my friends said that they saw it again, or they saw it already, but they want to see it again. So I guess it's good. And so we'll see. We'll see how it is. I'm up for checking out really anything. So and so that'll be exciting, and I'll probably do a review of that movie shortly after. So probably, I usually when I go to the movies, I always do a thing of where I let that movie, the experience kind of set in or sink in for about 24 hours. And then the next day after I've seen the movie, I usually will do a show on that movie just because it's, you know, sometimes you gotta, certain things you gotta digest. That happened big time for me when I saw Bring Her Back, which is a new horror film that came out a few weeks ago by the Filippo brothers, who I think they also directed another. This was their second full length feature. Talk to Her, I think, was the first one, which I thought was good, but I had a lot of mixed things around it. I thought that movie was a little bit overly hyped, but it was good, and so it was enough to where I was like, I kind of want to pay attention to these guys. Filippo brothers are they are twins. They're from Australia, so I was intrigued to see what this new movie was going to be like. And I saw it, and I had a weird reaction to it because I liked it, and then I felt like there were all these things that were kind of introduced to the story as to why things were happening they were the way they were. And then I felt by the end none of those things were really explained at all. So it was like a baffling. I it was a mixed bag. It was like I liked the movie in a lot of ways, and I thought it was very original and very unique. Some beautiful cinematography and all those things, but I just felt like it was kind of a mixed bag. I I felt like it just left you hanging, and it never really explained any of those things that it brought up by the end. And I didn't get that, like, because I like ambiguity. I like when things are a little bit mysterious, and I love films that give you a space to kind of make up your own mind. But this was where I felt like it introduced these things that were in the film, but there was never any explanation for it, and so it just didn't make any sense, by the end of it. And ultimately, it kind of ruined the film for me. So anyway, I just uploaded that show a day or two ago, so check that out. But that movie it's a pretty complex film. There's a lot of things going on in that movie. There's a lot of, well, to a degree, symbolism and kind of metaphor, I guess, if you want to call it that. So I needed to have that movie kind of, process a little bit. So I do that. I do that a lot. Sometimes, you get that first reaction from a film where you're like, I'm in it to win it, and by the end of it, you're enamored with it. Other times it's, when I saw other times it's not the case. It can be you might have to sit with it for a while and then it really resonates with you, or it can be something that you're just, you forget about the next day. When I first saw The Substance in the theater, I was totally blown away by that film immediately. And then also another film that I had that experience where I was like automatically I'm like, yep, this movie is fantastic, was Robert Eggers' Nosferatu. like just instantly, just things resonate with me, connected with me, and so we'll see. So stay tuned. There'll be a review for this new Paul Rudd film. I can't even think of the name of it right now, but I guess it's a black comedy. It's an A24. Bring Her Back was also an A24 film, so we'll see. So today's show is on a movie that I realized I never talked about, and it's a pretty cool movie. I have not seen it in a long time. I'm a huge Roman Polanski fan. I've covered a few of his films I know over the years on this channel. I have to kind of, it's very easy for me sometimes to kind of lose track of what movies I've covered. There are movies that I have done like numerous shows on because I just love them so much. I just uploaded a show for this fantastic satanic exploitation movie, The Brotherhood of Satan, and I've only seen that movie twice. I watched it again the other night, and that movie is just awesome. But I realized, and I did a video, I got it all set, and then I realized I had another video of it. But then I was like, well, screw it. I'll just post anyway. But sometimes I make the exceptions. I mean, because really it's about bringing, movies to the table, or shedding a little bit of light on a film that I feel like is overlooked and not talked about, and all of those great things. So, but I'm a huge Roman Polanski film. I mean, a iconic director. I mean, most well known for probably Rosemary's Baby, which is a horror masterpiece. The movie that I did a show on that's uploaded now, Brotherhood of Satan, was very much, I think, influenced by Rosemary's Baby. It definitely has that kind of vibe. Very slow, very creepy, but obviously very, very low budget. So there's a thing around that. And then another film of his that I really, really love is The Tenant. And then there's also the Chinatown, which I don't think I've done a show on, which I need to do a show on. So anyway, yeah, so lots of cool things to always talk about. There's quite a few of his films that I have not reviewed. I did a show on Death and the Maiden, which is another super underrated film of Roman Polanski's career, with starring Ben Kingsley and Sigourney Weaver, which is a thriller. And it's such an awesome movie, and it feels like that movie is a play because it essentially takes place. It's like three characters, and it takes place over this 24-hour period inside this house. Fantastic movie though, just so well done. But The Ninth Gate is a really great film. It's kind of one of the examples of Roman Polanski kind of diving back into making horror films. Of course, Rosemary's Baby being an iconic horror film. Also, The Tenant I think is also a fantastic horror film. Super creepy with Catherine Deneuve. Fantastic movie. So yeah, and I think I've done a show on that one. But The Ninth Gate was a different time for Polanski. It stars Johnny Depp, of course, and it came out in 1989 or 1999, which is crazy. It also stars Frank Langella. It's hard to believe this is 25 years ago. This movie came out. It's wild. This was during the time too in the 90s. Johnny Depp was on a pretty serious tear in as far as Hollywood films. I mean, he made so many great films in his career, especially during that period. My favorite movie of Johnny Depp is Dead Man, directed by Jim Jarmusch. That movie is just a masterpiece. It's also my favorite Jim Jarmusch film, and it's definitely on my list as far as, like, if I had to make a list of like top 5 or top 10 greatest movies of all time, I would put that movie on there. That was actually, I did a show on Dead Man, and that was actually the first video I think I ever did for my channel, or I should say, it was when I first started doing videos, I was doing Facebook Live videos about 4 years ago now. It was one of those things I just started doing to kind of keep my sanity because it was during COVID and lockdown. So I started doing these like Facebook Live videos. It's just an experiment. And I found that it was really fun. I was getting, a lot of cool I was getting a lot of feedback from people, so I just kept doing it. And then that led to me, about 2 years ago doing this channel. I've had this channel now for about 2 years. So it's been a real fantastic, fun, and, just really cool experience and a big learning experience. So I believe that that movie was like the first one I ever did. But The Ninth Gate, I've seen this movie quite a few times, and I've always really liked this movie, and I think it just gets better. It's Frank Langella. It came out in 1999. Frank Langella is fantastic. He's one of my favorite actors. I think he passed away a few years ago. Huge Frank Langella fan. Such a diverse body of work. He also starred in one of my favorite Dracula films of all time from 1979, which I've done a couple of shows on. But just one of my favorite actors of all time. And he's really great in this movie. He plays more or less the villain. And this movie, and I guess it's kind of a theme because I just uploaded a video on the Brotherhood of Satan. And so this is also kind of, this is a different. I mean, obviously it's a bigger budget of a film. It's not a grindhouse film. It's not an exploitation movie, but it's a good kind of satanic based thriller and it's definitely a horror film. And the whole story is basically Frank Langella's character plays. He's like this very wealthy guy who collects all of these books, especially books on the occult. And he hires Johnny Depp's character to basically track down these other books. He's like an investigator and collects and tracks down and sells rare books, and he makes a lot of money doing it. So he's like one of his clients, and so he pays Johnny Depp's character to find this other book that is supposedly this book that is can invoke an actual devil, and so he goes on this journey, and it's great. I mean, it's it's interesting too because I watched this the other night. I only have it on DVD, but this is a pretty good copy. I think this would be a good or a great upgrade to get on Blu-ray. I've only seen it. I've rented this. I mean, this again like 25 years ago, which is insane. But I remember when this came out, and then also I remember seeing it a few years after it came out. I didn't see it in the theater, but I did see it on DVD back in the day. The mid to late 90s was kind of the when DVDs were a thing. Like it was like this revolutionary thing, and back then DVDs had all kinds of special features, and now you can find them only on mostly Blu-rays, but and I think actually it's better as far as if you're a big time film nerd, if you want to find out about a film, the inner workings, and then also like interviews with the directors, the filmmakers. I mean, you can find some cool shit on a lot of these newer editions, especially Blu-ray. But this edition's good. I mean, I've had it for a long, long time. I can't remember where I got it, but it's got some good. There's a pretty decent little documentary about this movie. And I know there are. I had a conversation. I think it was last week when I went to the movies. It came up somehow about we were talking about Roman Polanski, and I know a lot of people for, a lot of reasons have like completely like I guess canceled Roman Polanski for some of the shit that happened in his past. But and I get that, but I don't know. It's like it's a fine line, and but you know I don't really. I can separate the person from their body of work to a degree, and I know obviously it overlaps and it's all kind of interconnected. But I'm pretty good at doing that, and I understand. I mean, there's a lot of obvious directors that have, and people in Hollywood, but especially actors, especially directors. Like for instance, Mel Gibson. Woody Allen, Roman Polanski, even Lars von Trier. They've all done things that are kind of awful. So and said things that are awful, but I it doesn't stop me from watching films. I understand people being like, "Well, fuck them," and Kevin Spacey being another one, as far as an actor, and so I understand that, and it's, but I don't know, I've always been, I've always been someone who can step outside of that a little bit, but so I still remain a huge Polanski film. I can still watch his films. I don't like, you know, even another great, fantastic horror film, Jeepers Creepers. The director for that was, it came out later that he was a convicted, pedophile, and serves time in prison for it. But I can still, I can still watch that movie. I think that movie is amazing. But so I understand. I understand that. But anyway, that's not going to stop me from really watching those films and really appreciating the body of work, especially when it comes to like, Roman Polanski, who I'm a huge, huge fan of, and also I'm a huge Woody Allen fan as well. I love their work. Even the last Woody Allen film was, which I did a show on a little while ago, which was really good. But so it is what it is. But I think this film, The Ninth Gate, is a pretty cool movie. I mean, it's really, in Roman Polanski's career, I think this is probably. I mean, I might be leaving a movie out or two, but I believe that this is probably his like third film where he kind of did a horror film more or less, or dove back into the horror genre. He's mostly made thrillers and things of that nature. Well, I should say the Fearless Vampire Killers, which is another just classic. That's like a horror comedy, so that's another horror film, and that's a vampire movie, obviously. So I'd say okay, it's probably his fourth. And this was one of the later films of his career. He hasn't, he's gotten up there in age. He hasn't made a film in a while, I don't believe. The last film of his that I saw, I couldn't really remember it being that great. Um, but anyway, this was, a different film for him. I think he was coming off of, doing more thrillers and dramas, and then, for him to dive back into doing horror films. And this is, I don't know, it's funny watching this movie. I watched it again the other night, and I hadn't actually seen this in quite a while, The Ninth Gate. It's more comedic. There's a lot of funny moments in this movie, which I kind of forget. I always forget about. It's definitely a horror film. It definitely has supernatural element. It is a movie about, it's definitely a satanic themed kind of film, and it definitely has all of those trappings. But it's watching this the other night. I was like, oh wait, this is a lot. This has a lot more comedy than I remember having in it before. It was There's a lot of funny moments in this movie, and kind of silly and goofy moments. The other thing about this movie, it's very much a horror film, very much like a satanic themed film. But I like that it messes with your expectations a little bit. It goes into areas where are very surprising and and are pretty unique in regards to the idea of what happens with the devil, or some of these characters who in this film who are quote unquote devil worshippers, and some of the scenarios that happen to them, and it is very cool and unique, and really have this kind of original spin to it. And you never actually see the devil, which I think is cool too. There's not like there isn't that personification that you might expect to actually happen, or the showing of the devil. So it's kind of interesting that way. It kind of goes a little bit into people who have a sense of you know believing in what can happen, maybe to a degree, of people who in a literal sense believe in these like supernatural beings, when it's really just mythology. and what that can cost to that person's life. It goes into that a little bit, but really good film, really great film. I really think it's an awesome film, really entertaining. I definitely recommend it. It's and Johnny Depp hadn't done, really hadn't really dove, in his career he's hasn't really done too many horror films that I can think of, and so it's kind of interesting seeing him in this kind of film, and he's great in it. And this again was during the time when he was making all kinds of, really great films in the 90s, going into the 2000s. So, but very cool movie, and I definitely recommend it. I hear this movie talked about still here and there, but this is my first time talking about it, and I realized I have never done a show on it. So thanks again, and we will see you next time. Peace.